It was just after midnight on June 13, 2020. Roydon, a quiet Essex village, was wrapped in stillness. Only the hum of the motorway and the occasional barking dog broke the night. Then, 8 gunshots tore through the dark. Witnesses later said it didn't sound like a burst of violence. It sounded mechanical, practiced, and cold. Within seconds, a black BMW X5 screeched away from Water Lane, leaving behind the body of 50-year-old Robert Powell. Powell wasn't a gangster. He was a father, a grandfather, and a familiar face in London's music community. But that night, the bullets that found him weren't random. They were a message. When detectives arrived, they found a scene that felt professional. Casings neatly grouped, no fingerprints, no dropped phones. Whoever had done this hadn't panicked. They'd executed a plan. By morning, the village was flooded with police. Drones hovered above rooftops. Forensics combed the roadside grass, and locals whispered the same question. Why would anyone want to kill Robert Powell? That question led investigators into a decade-long shadow, where one name kept resurfacing: Nana Oppong. To those who'd known him years earlier, Oppong was the charismatic face often seen behind tinted glass at East London clubs. To detectives, he was something else entirely, a survivor of every failed investigation tied to him. In 2010, when gunfire erupted inside the Sugar Lounge nightclub in Leighton, Oppong's name surfaced, but the case collapsed. In 2014, after the Dagenham shooting left one man dead, Oppong again was questioned, and again walked free. Each time he slipped away, his legend grew. On the streets, he was whispered about as the Teflon Don, a man too smart, too cautious, too connected to ever face a verdict. But Robert Powell's murder changed everything. As the investigation unfolded, officers began reconstructing the convoy scene on CCTV. 2 vehicles, one black, one silver, both circling Water Lane minutes before the shots. License plates cloned, movements deliberate. When detectives traced the route that night, they found something unexpected, a faint but undeniable digital trail. Oppong, for years untouchable, had made a mistake. And in 2020, that mistake would open the door to the digital age of organized crime. By the time the ballistics report confirmed that the weapon used in Roydon matched casings linked to an earlier London assault, police realized they weren't chasing random revenge. They were dismantling an empire. And somewhere between the encrypted phones and the false passports, Nana Oppong's name appeared once more, this time attached to a message even he couldn't hide. For weeks after the shooting, the case seemed frozen. The convoy was gone, the phones silent. Every clue led to a dead end. Then, deep within a classified cyber operations room in France, something changed. The global encrypted phone network known as EncroChat had been cracked. Until that moment, EncroChat was considered impenetrable, a subscription-only device used by criminals across Europe. Its users felt invisible, but French investigators had silently penetrated the system and mirrored thousands of live messages to law enforcement across the continent. Among the usernames flooding British servers, 2 handles stood out: ENS and Slick. At first, they were just lines in a data stream. But when Essex detectives began matching times, routes, and cell tower locations, the pattern became undeniable. ENS wasn't just another dealer. He was planning something larger. Messages dated June 5, 2020 discussed the job in Roydon. The plan aborted after a last-minute heat warning. A week later, June 13th, a single message appeared: all clear. Minutes later, Robert Powell was dead. The EncroChat breach became the first digital window into Oppong's underworld. Within those encrypted threads were voice notes, maps, and coded exchanges, small fragments that, when combined, painted the full picture of premeditated murder. Oppong's alias ENS coordinated the convoy, provided the car, and gave the all-clear. Forensic analysts recovered timestamps and GPS metadata embedded in backups he thought were erased. For detectives who'd spent a decade hitting walls, this was the moment everything cracked open. They built a timeline. On June 12th, Enns received a location pin near Powell's address. The following morning, he ordered burner phones distributed. That night, the convoy left London at 11:52 p.m. By 12:07 a.m., Powell was dead. Every detail was in the chat logs, even the post-job boast. Job clean, back in 2 days. By the time the messages were decrypted and verified, Nana Oppong had vanished. Interpol issued a red notice, and Britain's National Crime Agency took over. For the first time, the evidence against him wasn't hearsay, gossip, or circumstantial traces. It was binary proof. The same network that gave criminals a sense of invisibility now betrayed them, line by line. And at the top of those lines was the man Essex police now called Britain's invisible suspect. When detectives raided the East London home linked to Oppong, the beds were still warm, the fridge still stocked, and the SIM cards gone. Within hours of the shooting, he had already disappeared. He used forged travel papers, slipping through ferry ports under a Maltese alias. What followed was a 2-year cat-and-mouse chase across borders and continents. In Spain's Costa del Sol, he re-emerged among a community of British fugitives, men with false names, expensive watches, and quiet villas with steel doors. Interpol tracked fragments of his trail, a passport scan here, a wire transfer there. Each clue led deeper into a hidden network of safehouses stretching from Marbella to Algeciras. Oppong wasn't alone. 2 of his closest associates, Isra Shah and Tedop Adinka, also vanished from the UK. Both had appeared in the EncroChat transcripts. Both were now ghosts. The National Crime Agency coordinated with Spain's Guardia Civil, tracing Oppong's movement through rental agreements and encrypted devices recovered from raids. But every time they closed in, he moved. Grenada, then Seville, then North Africa. By 2022, Oppong had become one of Britain's most wanted fugitives. His face appeared on billboards, online campaigns, and Interpol's Operation Captura list. But he remained a step ahead until September 2022. At a border crossing in Tangier, Moroccan officers stopped a man presenting a Maltese passport. Something didn't add up. The document looked perfect, but the photo didn't quite match. They ran his fingerprints. Within minutes, an alert flashed across Interpol's system. Nana Oppong wanted for murder in the United Kingdom. After nearly 2 years on the run, the Teflon Don was finally caught, not by a shootout or a tip-off, but by a fingerprint scanner. As he was led away in handcuffs, British investigators received the message they'd waited for since 2020. Target detained. Tangier confirmed. Back in London, prosecutors prepared the largest digital forensic case in Essex police history. Every EncroChat message, every alias, every GPS ping was compiled into a single timeline. And yet, even as Oppong sat in a Moroccan cell awaiting extradition, another name was about to surface. Another fugitive, another man who believed he could outrun the law. While Oppong's capture dominated headlines, another case was quietly unfolding hundreds of miles away. Manchester 2018, broad daylight. A red Audi pulled up beside a parked car. 5 shots were fired at close range. When it was over, 31-year-old Luke Graham was dead and his friend, Anton Varigata, severely wounded. Police described it as an execution, a turf war message, and the suspects, Wade Cox and Callum Halpin, vanished before detectives could even issue warrants. Like Oppong, Halpin believed he could disappear. For 4 years he moved through Europe, hiding under false identities. But by 2022, as British authorities coordinated international manhunts, his luck ran out. In Alicante, Spain, Halpin was arrested at a small apartment complex. Oppong was still awaiting extradition in Morocco. Two fugitives, two cases, united by the same message. No matter how far you run, the evidence will follow. Back in London, Oppong was flown under heavy escort to stand trial at Woolwich Crown Court. Prosecutors unveiled the EncroChat transcripts line by line. Jurors saw every message, every timestamp, every route. Oppong's defense claimed the handle ends could belong to anyone. But the metadata told a different story. Fingerprints on devices, contacts saved under names only he used, and photos recovered from deleted caches matching his clothing and location. Across the courtroom, families of both the victim and the accused listened in silence. When the verdict was read, there was no cheer, no sigh of relief, just the sound of finality. Nana Oppong, guilty of murder, sentenced to 38 years. Isra Shah, 26 years. Callum Halpin, 30 years. For the families, justice had finally arrived. For detectives, it was the closing chapter of two of Britain's longest fugitive hunts. Oppong had believed he was untouchable, a man above consequence, but technology caught up to him. The same encrypted devices that hid his crimes became the witnesses that convicted him. As one senior investigator later said, every new layer of tech they build to hide behind eventually becomes the layer that brings them down. From Essex to Tangier, from Manchester to Alicante, the message was the same. The days of disappearing into the underworld are over. They ran from London to Spain, from Manchester to Morocco, but in the end, time and evidence caught them all. The story of Nana Oppong and Callum Halpin isn't just about two fugitives. It's about an evolution, the moment organized crime met digital forensics and lost. If you found this story gripping, make sure you're subscribed, because next week, we'll be uncovering the encrypted communications that brought down another European crime syndicate hiding in plain sight. Until then, stay alert, stay curious, and remember, every secret leaves a trace.